Welcome to Ghost Tales. I'm your host, Ashley Knight. Thank you again for joining us. With us today is Chris Houlihan. He is with Haunts of Richmond, actually, joining us today via Zoom. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I love the decoration above your head. I see you like a good background like we do.
It's always spooky season around here. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so Chris, first of all, tell us about Haunts of Richmond and how you got involved with them.
Yeah. So, company's been around for over 20 years now. It was founded back in 2004, actually, as a haunted house attraction that was based on some of the haunting lore around the city of Richmond. And the founders of the company, Scott and Sandy, found very quickly that people that were coming into this haunted house attraction were also asking, well, when's the ghost tour? But it wasn't a ghost tour at that point in time. And so they did take a hint, and they fortunately, again, had based the haunted house off of the haunting lore of the city. So they were able to go ahead and kind of flesh that out, do some additional research, and they rolled out the first ghost tour, The Shadows of Shaco, in 2005. So ghost tours have been going ever since. That hit the ground running. The haunted house attraction closed a few years later, but the ghost tours are still going strong. And we've expanded into 6 different neighborhoods across the city of Richmond. As for myself, it's a little bit of a ghost story in its own right as to how I got involved. My wife, Beth, who's the president of the company now, started as a ghost guide with the company in 2007. I would oftentimes come down, hang around the neighborhood while she was telling her, going ahead and giving the ghost tours. And let's just say that one evening, an employee got spooked off by one of the resident spirits, and they were frantically in need of some help. And so they're like, well, you're already hanging out in the area, so do you want to come on by and start pitching in? And I basically started the next day.
Oh, wow.
It's a detailed story in its own right, yeah, it's that's how I ultimately got involved. And after several years of that, me kind of helping behind the scenes, Beth giving the ghost tours, when Scott and Sandy decided to retire from the business at the end of 2015, they asked us if we wanted to keep it running, and we leapt at the opportunity. So Beth and I have been running Haunts of Richmond for about 10 years now.
Oh, wow. How fun is that? So did the guide just not expect they're giving a ghost tour, but they didn't expect to see a ghost or experience anything?
It was a partnership. Actually, we were, well, appropriately enough, we're talking about the Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, and we were partnered with the Poe Museum.
Uh-huh.
And it was one of the Poe Museum staffers that was helping with the tour one night. And they had an encounter, had a step too far, if you will, with one of the resident spirits at the Poe Museum. And they wound up quitting on the spot. So that's where I came in. I kind of filled that space there, helping out with the Poe Museum partnership for a while.
Okay. All right. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about Edgar Allan Poe. We all know that famous museum is in Richmond. Explain a little bit kind of how they came to decide to place the museum in that house, because that house kind of doesn't really have any direct correlation to Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, that's correct. So the Poe Museum, to their credit, they've been there for over a century now. They had their centennial celebration a couple of years ago, and they came onto the property ultimately after serving as a family residence for over 150 years. There was a brief period where the property then served as kind of a living history museum, and this is decades after Edgar Allan Poe's death. And the Poe Foundation, such as it is today, was looking for a place to be able to put in a memorial to Edgar. And they worked with that Living History Museum to build what is now the big memorial to Poe at the back of the Enchanted Garden. And over time, when the Living History Museum kind of ultimately went by the wayside, the Poe Foundation stepped in to take over the entirety of the property. And that's how the Poe Museum ultimately wound up here in the Shockoe Bottom neighborhood. But that's not just, Poe does have a lot of direct connections to Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, all the places that he lived and worked have been demolished here in town, but still a very strong legacy of Poe tied here to the city of Richmond.
Gotcha. And that what you were referencing in the back of the garden there, that's the bust of Edgar Allan Poe, and people leave, little tokens to let people know that they've been there, that he's appreciated. He's usually when I went to go visit him, he had lipstick, kiss marks all over his face and, and everything.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to see. All right. So talk a little bit. So how long? What year did that start? The museum in
Uh, oh, the exact
in
year for the
earnest?
museum. It was the early 1920s. It's escaping me whether it was 1922, 1923, but it's uh, been just over 100 years now that
Okay.
the Poe Museum has had that entire property.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And remind me again what year Edgar Allan Poe died.
He died in 1949.
1949. Yes.
Sadly, he was only 40 years old. And there's that whole mystery surrounding his death up there in the city of Baltimore.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was enthralled with Edgar Allan Poe growing up. I read the poems and the short stories and everything, but I admit that I did not know as much as I thought I did about his life until I visited this museum. So it's just fascinating. If anybody has a chance to go visit this museum, it is truly remarkable, and it really opens your eyes to kind of everything going on with his life, and, as you said, the mystery surrounding his death.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating place, and we're very fortunate to have here in the city.
Gotcha. Alrighty. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the hauntings and as Chris alluded to, some of the spirits that are around the house that houses the Edgar Allan Poe Museum. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ghost Tales. We are joined by Chris Houlihan today. We are so happy to have you with us. He's with Haunts of Richmond, and we're specifically talking today about Edgar Allan Poe and that fantastic museum that is in Richmond that is all about Edgar Allan Poe, his life, the mystery surrounding his death, and all of that. And you mentioned before that there is ghostly activity going on at this house that houses the museum that kind of got you into your dealings with Haunts of Richmond, kind of got you into this profession. Talk about this. Is it a ghost of a little boy, Jonathan?
Yes, that's right. The Old Stone House, the cornerstone of the Poe Museum today, was home of the Ege family for generations after generation. It's been there. The house has been there since the founding of Richmond, 1737, and many generations of the Eges lived there. We think that Jonathan was a little boy from the earliest days of the house. Unfortunately, succumbed to one of those childhood diseases of the era, but he never ultimately wound up leaving the house. And he still does make himself known there today. Most often, people will hear him kind of running around on the second floor of the Old Stone House, which is generally speaking off limits. It's storage and office space. And they will also sometimes. They have done a little rearranging of the museum, but about a decade, 15 years ago, the Old Stone House was the main entrance and the gift shop and whatnot. And they would sometimes come in and they would find little trinkets from the gift shop had been kind of tossed around or played with as if a child had kind of rampant through the gift shop when nobody was there. So he's doing the things that little boys do, running around, playing with the toys and whatnot. But I can also thank him again for helping me get involved ultimately with Haunts of Richmond. So we did at one point in time have an official partnership with the Poe Museum. We would start our Shadows of Shako tour inside the museum. Did that for several years. Ultimately, did go by the wayside. The Poe Museum found very lucrative uses for their evening time there, renting it out for private events or having things like their unhappy hours and whatnot. So totally understand that. We still do events with them from time to time. We're going to be working with them this coming Saturday, in fact. But when we were starting the tours in the museum, there always had to be a Poe Museum staffer on hand to open up the museum for the tours. Makes sense, liability wise, and all that. And most often this fell to a young woman named Erica. Erica was pretty much the only person at the museum that wanted to get those extra hours in the evening. And it was one October evening when things were particularly busy for us. We were running a couple tours a night out of the Poe Museum. And our first guide of the evening, Melanie, comes back and notices that Erica's looking a little upset. Is everything okay? Now let's get the second tour out of here and then we can talk about it. So, the second tour of the evening goes out. That was actually led by Beth. And they're out in the Shockoe Bottom neighborhood doing their thing. Melanie and Erica are the only ones in the old stone house. And all right, Erica, what's going on? What's wrong? Well, it's Jonathan. He's just been running back and forth upstairs all day, and it's just kind of driving me nuts. And at that point in time, the footsteps kind of run back and forth again. And Melanie hears that and says, well, all you have to do, he's a little boy. Have you tried talking to him like you're his mother? And she turns around, looks up the ceiling and says, Jonathan, you're upsetting Erica. You need to stop this right now. Turns back around, looks at Erica. Erica's not at all settled at all. The footsteps have stopped, but what's still upsetting Erica? And it's almost like one of those Scooby-Doo type moments where Melanie starts to put 2 plus 2 together and realizes there's something else here, isn't there? And turns out another apparition actually had appeared in the gift shop and was giving a very solid glare to Melanie and Erica. We call this entity Kate. Kate is the name that has come through on some paranormal investigations that were done at the museum over the years. And we don't know her exact relation to Jonathan because there were multiple Kates and Catherines throughout the Ege family tree over the years. But regardless of her relation to Jonathan, she seems to have stepped into a little bit of a protector role, and she did not appreciate Melanie talking to Jonathan in such a way.
Dear.
Beth comes back, finds Melanie and Erica looking a little frazzled. What's going on? Well, let's get everybody out of here, then we can talk about it. Everybody's gone. All right, what's going on? Or let's just lock up. Let's get out of here. All right, fine. Let's do this. They lock up the museum. They head out to the parking lot. All right, what's going on? And instead of answering the question, Erica pulls her phone out, calls the curator of the museum, and quits on the spot.
Oh.
And that is when I got the call the next day. It's like, hey, you've been hanging around the neighborhood anyways at these hours. Do you want to step in and do this? And that is how I ultimately got involved. And again, when the official partnership with the museum did get dissolved, I stayed on with Haunts of Richmond, and I'm still doing this to this day.
Goodness. Okay. And you said that happened in the old stone house.
The old stone house, correct.
Where is that in relation to where you enter in now? Because where you enter in now is kind of a very narrow space right there.
Yeah, the main entrance now is what, at least at one point in time, was called the model building, because there was a big model in there, which is model building, as you're looking at it from Main Street, is immediately to the left of the old stone house. Okay. So you kind of walk in along the side of the old stone house to the main entrance today.
Okay, so the old stone house today is kind of that first building off to the right. Once you go through, if you go out that immediate right door into that first little building of exhibits.
Yes, yep, right. That's right. So that first exhibit now is showing the earliest years of Edgar's life.
Correct. Okay. Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. And when did this happen? What year was this?
That was back in 2011, I think it was.
2011. Oh, wow. And she just quit on the spot right there.
Yep, quit on the spot. That was Erica's last day.
Poor Erica. All righty. We're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some correlation between John Allen, who was Edgar Allan Poe's foster father, and the memorial building, which is part of the museum as it stands today. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ghost Tales. We are having so much fun talking about Edgar Allan Poe, the museum in Richmond, Haunts of Richmond. We're joined by Chris Houlihan, who gives the guided tours and knows quite a bit about Edgar Allan Poe and the museum there in Richmond. We're having so much fun talking about this and how he got his job, which was thanks to one of these spirits. And now we're going to talk about the memorial building, which is that one of the buildings on the property that was built by the Edgar Allan Poe Association?
Yeah, it's the only building that they completely built themselves. All the other buildings on the property, the Old Stone House, the Memorial Building, the Carriage House, those were all there when the Poe Museum moved in. The Memorial Building is the brick building that's right up against the parking lot closest to Main Street.
Okay.
Looks a little odd because it looks almost like a half a house
Yeah.
with the way that the roof is situated on it.
Gotcha.
So,
And
yep.
this is associated with kind of has association with John Allen, which was Edgar Allan Poe's foster father.
Right. So the Poe Foundation, they knew they wanted to add this extra building to the premises, and coincidentally, at the same time, some of the places that were associated with Poe, the Southern Literary Messenger, one of his childhood homes, were unfortunately getting torn down at the same time. So they reclaimed some of those building materials and incorporated them into the memorial building, making the building itself a bit of an artifact. The thing that's most associated with John Allen in there is the main staircase that goes up to the second floor. And for today, if you go in there, you can go up that staircase. There's a little reading nook there up on the second floor. But for many years, the second floor was off limits. They used it as office space, storage up there. And it was most notably during that time that people would sometimes have some odd and sometimes very unfortunate incidents on that staircase. On top of it being off limits to the general public, that was also the space that they allotted for brides to get ready for when they have weddings there in the Enchanted Garden.
Oh, goodness.
And oftentimes when people were going up or coming down those stairs, they would sometimes get a very distinct feeling of being pushed, or sometimes getting like a little slap or something like that. And we think that this is associated with John Allen. Main reason is that John Allen and Edgar did not have the warmest of relationships. John Allen was a man of business and wanted Edgar to follow in his footsteps. That obviously didn't happen, and the relationship between the two strained more and more until it eventually snapped. They had a complete falling out, the older Edgar got. And we think that the fact that something that belonged to John Allen is in a museum that's effectively dedicated to Edgar is something that probably grates on him a little bit.
And what is that? What is that item?
It's the staircase itself.
Oh, okay, okay.
The staircase itself that people go up and down that came from the Allen townhome that was getting that they managed to reclaim.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. Okay. So is it it's just the staircase that they've moved over, that they've built the rest of this structure around?
Yeah. Many of the other things there in the old stone house. Some of them came from the Southern Literary Messenger and whatnot. But that staircase seems to be where a good bulk of the activity in the memorial building, what it's associated around, on top of the feelings of getting pushed and slapped in that. People have, during investigations, they've also caught little orbs of light kind of going up and down the staircase in that area as well. So there's definitely something going on around there. People have heard sounds of like a little bit of a malevolent laugh is there in that area, particularly right after somebody has an unfortunate experience on the stairs. Of late, it doesn't seem that they have been too active in that area of late. I'm not sure if it's because they have effectively rededicated the second floor of the memorial building. And I hope that that's true, because I hate to see anybody, getting hurt or anything like that.
Absolutely.
And so kind of seems to cool down a little bit, although certain people that are on the sensitive side of things will still feel very heavy, oppressive weight just being in the space itself.
Wow. Is that building, remind me which artifacts are in that building. Is that the one with his bag with the suitcase that he left behind?
Yes, I think there's that. There's his desk is in there. A lot of things that are associated with the middle of his life are in that building. Artifacts that are associated with people that he knew during the middle of his life as well. So things about surrounding his work, surrounding his love life, and that's basically what's in the memorial building today.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and I mentioned this to you before as I was visiting that museum. It's kind of like as it went on longer and longer, I started feeling such such a heavy feeling kind of the longer I stayed in this building. It was just really, and that must be it a little bit. But it's really interesting. I love the museum, and I love all the artifacts and the interesting tidbits and everything that you get with that. And talk briefly about, would you mind talking just really quickly about the mystery surrounding Edgar Allan Poe's death?
Yeah. So this is at the very end of his life, as I mentioned, he only lived to be 40 years old. And he was on a trip on his way up to Philadelphia, then on his way to New York City. Philadelphia for a job interview. New York City, he was going to be picking up a family member, bringing him back to Richmond for what was supposed to be an upcoming wedding. He was engaged to be married to his childhood sweetheart, Elmira Royster Shelton. And he left town thinking that things were on the upswing for him, that things were going to be getting better. But he never made it to Philadelphia, let alone New York City. He was found in Baltimore in a gutter, wearing somebody else's clothes, incoherent. And it was very close to a polling space as well. And well, there's dozens of theories about exactly what happened to him, because unfortunately he never really regained lucidity. He was taken to a hospital and passed away several days later. We think my personal favorite as far as the theories go is something called cooping, which was effectively voter fraud. People would sweep up people that were visiting town. They would get them a little drunk, take them to the polls, have them vote, leave, get a little more drunk, put them in somebody else's clothes, take them back, rinse and repeat time and time again until they were effectively not able to function anymore. And based on the fact that Edgar was found in somebody else's clothes and incoherent in the state that he was in, close to a polling place, I kind of favor that theory. But again, there's really no way to definitively prove it in this day, with it having been well over 150 years ago.
Wow. And they've recently done a kind of, I don't want to say like an autopsy, but didn't they recently look at his his body to see if there was any sort of drug or narcotics or anything in his system that would have caused this? And they said there was essentially kind of nothing there. And so they were kind of thinking one way or the other, or it just didn't prove that theory. Not to say that he wasn't drunk, but just that he didn't have, he wasn't incoherent to the point that it was, drug induced.
Right. He, by all accounts, he didn't necessarily hold his liquor very well. So he was, seems to have been a little easy to get on the drunk side. They did some testing for like heavy metals and things like that. Mm-hmm. Oh, was it lead poisoning or mercury or something like that? And they did find elevated levels of some of those things in hair samples that they had. Okay. But those elevated levels weren't anything above and beyond what was actually typical of that era. So it does not seem to be the likely cause for his state. But yeah, there's a couple of the theories that they have managed to kind of rule out based on some of the more modern forensic testing that they've been able to do on samples of hair and things like that.
Yeah, it's just really fascinating. If you go and check it out and read everything, it's just really interesting. You can go and kind of form your own opinion about what happened. And I love that you can see, the suitcase that he left behind, and oh, here's the key. Did he have it on him? He didn't have it on him, did he? The key to the suitcase? I can't remember now.
That detail, you stumped me on that detail.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I do recall some detail about the key, but I don't recall exactly what it was.
Yeah, it was something weird, like why would he leave behind the suitcase in the hotel but have the key on him if he were leaving town or something like that? I can't remember exactly what, but it's really interesting and it's really fascinating. And you obviously love your job.
Oh, yes, very much so. I consider myself very fortunate to be able to talk about the spooky side of Richmond and really be able to kind of develop this close connection with the city's past and also the other people around town that do help to be caretakers of Richmond's history today at the various museums and things like that. It's a privilege to be able to do this.
Absolutely. And if people want to come up and take one of your tours, how can they get involved? How can they find you?
Yeah, easiest way to find us is our website, hauntsofrichmond.com. We also are on social media: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all those platforms. So you can find us on social media. But yeah, for the latest information on our events and tickets to our tours and things like that, hauntsofrichmond.com is the place to go.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. We loved having you here.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Ghost Tales. If you have any kind of experience or tale you want to tell, you want to share with me, you can always email me at ashley.knight@wavy.com. That's ASHLEY dot KNIGHT @wavy.com. And we'll see you next time on Ghost Tales.